like, no, we don't believe it.
No, we don't believe you're friends with this guy who's been on Coachella. Like, come on. So Facebook banned us, and we haven't been able to get back on. But who cares? Facebook is just for grandparents and races.
I don't even touch Facebook anymore. I have like it's like an anxiety to even go on Facebook. Like
yes.
I can't even click into it.
No. But we got to introduce our guest today. I'm going to start off with one of my favorite peoples who invited me to my first panel at the Muslim Arc, Marguerite Hill. Welcome.
Thank
it's
you.
So nice to have you. Tell our fans a little bit about yourself.
Oh gosh, well, I'm the co-founder, executive director. So I do a lot of things. I wear a lot of hats and scarves and everything. Scarves in different ways.
Nice.
We provide like training. I have an 11-year-old, so I have a lot of fun with her. We spend, like every year we either get our Universal Pass or Disney Pass, and we just try to go as many times as we can, living in Southern California. So
that's the best. That's the best. And I can't wait to meet you at Comic-Con San Diego, and you're going to be at ISNA, which is exciting.
Yeah. We really need to. I'm going to talk with the planners, and if not, we're going to have an informal convening of like Muslim nerddom of fandom.
Oh my God.
But yeah, like I'm going to be on Comic-Con and the panel will be on Muslim futurisms. And yeah, like I spend a lot of time doing that. I also am futurist, like I do kind of work on strategy for Fresh Pulp magazine. So we usually talk about sci-fi and whatever's on, but we're on a little bit of a hiatus as we transition. We're trying to be like you, like we're trying to be like Salaam nerds, and you're our mentors,
Oh man, we'd be nowhere. We'd be nowhere without you. You know what? We need people to be our conscience, because who knows where we're end up. We're two brown guys. We can't have that many good opinions.
Statistically speaking, you're correct.
Yeah. All right. The next person I'm going to introduce you does not need an introduction. She has more talent in her camera roll than Netflix has on their entire budget. This is one of my favorite TikTok creators. She has the best Marvel content. She's so funny. You have to check her out. Nikki Marina.
Hi. Thank you. That is high praise. My gosh.
I've been following you forever, and you have the best content. One of my favorite is when you did the Miss Marvel one, and you're like, Miss Marvel's real power is using white privilege to win.
It was. That was my inner dialogue. That entire episode, I'm like, man, she is using the shit out of these white people. I'm like, that's what, make them work for you, girls. Make them work for you, Kamala.
That's so funny. No, we love it, man. I don't know how your brain works, but like, it's so good. It's so good. You come up with the greatest content. So she does this like have like people talk to each other from characters, and it's just amazing. And like, I didn't even watch the Miguel O'Hara ones because I know they're gonna be good, but like I wanted to experience them on the show first because I'm really excited to have you on. I'm so excited.
I've been doing a lot of. I didn't expect to have as much Miguel O'Hara content as I have been cranking out, but I have more. I have more sitting in the drafts too. So.
I can't wait.
I can't wait.
He's been a fun one for sure.
That's the great thing about this show, this movie, because there's so much representation. You got like Indian Spider-Man that me and Jazz can speak on, and then there's like the Afro-Latino element, and then there's like so many rich cultures that are basically being shown in this movie, and there's so much subtlety, some that people can't get and some that people can, and it's so exciting. Catch it, and I really, really love it. So I want to get your overall thoughts about the movie, and then we're gonna move on and we're gonna dive in and we're gonna dissect this bad boy. Nikki, you want to go first? What was your overall thoughts about the movie?
Yeah, well, I mean, after we all experienced the first one, it's kind of probably one of the only movie in the world that I go into the sequel and I'm like, it's going to be as fire as the first one. And I have no worries about the quality of what it's going to be. I'm just here to see where it takes me. And of course, it blew me away. The soundtrack was impeccable,
Fire.
as was the first one. You know, Metro did his thing on that. Like as an album, it was amazing. The score, and I think for a lot of us, it's been a while since the first one. And I believe they always said that this was going to be a two-parter, but I think we all just forgot.
Yeah,
And
I don't know how everyone forgot. I knew the two-parter.
I forgot. I forgot. I completely forgot. And I was blessed to go to the premiere, and I remember telling my manager who was sitting next to me, I'm like, this is gonna be a 2-hour movie because the first one was 2 hours.
Right.
And then I, you know, I looked at my watch, not because I was bored, but like 2 hours, and I'm like, this isn't resolving.
Yeah.
And then sure, I'm like, oh no, and then XYZ. But yeah, no. Besides the obvious things that are, you know, incredible about it, the animation, the story, and I'm sure we're gonna get into like the subtext of the story later on. I guess I will say that my favorite thing about it is that they touch more on Miles's identity, in some subtle and meta ways, that can, you know, that I think everybody can maybe relate to, but mostly, you know, people that look like us here. So yeah, I can't wait to talk more about that.
I can't wait to dive about that, especially the conversation that Miles' mom has with him. I can't wait to dive into that. Margarita. Tell us what your overall thoughts were about the movie.
Oh, gosh. I mean, you know, I had my first tweet, which took a little while. It's normally, you know, like I can feel like I'm okay and I can, you know, like kind of process right after. But I was like, I need a moment. I just need to, you know, I mean, it was beautiful. It's gorgeous. The vibrancy of the colors, the animation styles, like all in one, like how they blended it, the storylines. Like, I mean, we laughed so much. Like my daughter said, she was like, I cried because it was so good. And so, you know, I mean, and my daughter is like, you know, she's a Libra, so she's always judging everything. If something wasn't right, you know, like if it was something, she's like making comments, but it was just like, she got the Easter eggs, but she was like, it's so good. And it's, so it was just like really wonderful seeing parts of it through her eyes, like, and just how she was relating. But for me, it was just like, you know, being in a theater where I felt the audience, like, and there's a lot of Latino folks in the audience, and I just felt them like get it, like they were laughing, you know, like, and I was just like, I just felt like just really, it was just very powerful, and it was a roller coaster ride, and there was that part where I was like 2 hours in, I was like, I need a breath, you know? Like, I was just like, and then it went in, and then, I mean, but still like the pace, because I was at first, I was like, oh no, I could take any much more, because this is a lot, but it was like, it just picked up, and it was still really good. And then I just feel like it's definitely something I could watch multiple times in a theater. You know, to catch the things that I missed the first time, and I do want to do that. So, you know, I'm gonna be there on those like Tuesday matinees to keep watching.
This is going to be a movie that I'm going to dissect on Disney Plus, like when I watch it, because it's just a good feel-good movie. Like when I turn on the first one and the Biggie Smalls music start coming on, and I'm just like, oh, this just feels right. And I really, really love that. And I did want to mention about one thing that you said, like when they speak Spanish and you hear the like Spanish, I love that. That's one of my favorite feelings, because when I went to Spider-Man No Way Home, and I think Ned's mother was Filipino, and you hear like all the Filipino people just get the joke, and then you hear like the Spanish speaking people get the jokes, and then in Miss Marvel you hear like, you know, the Pakistani people get the jokes. It's just a good feeling. You're just like, oh, they made something for them. It's something funny. I love that. It's a great feeling, even when you don't get to experience that. To feel other people experience that is a great thing. I'm a big fan of that.
Those little touches, they matter so much.
It just
Yeah.
gives that authenticity to that representation, because there's like,
Mhm.
I don't really think there's good representation and bad representation. I think there's authentic representation and inauthentic representation, right?
Mhm.
And when you see things like that, you're like, oh, that's authentic. When the people who it's referencing get the joke, then you're like, oh, that's real. That's real. So I
Yeah.
love that.
It felt like
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
for them, and when it's made for the people, like, okay, we're representing you, not to translate you for these other people, but to have that moment, right? Like where you're just gonna like resonate with that. And so for me, like when I see that, it's just really beautiful. And growing up in a multicultural world, like even with the Spider-Man No Way Home, it's like, I mean, I grew up in a Filipino neighborhood, so there was once upon a time I used to speak Tagalog, I used to understand it. Like, so it's like, but I even like I missed that rhythm when I lived in Philadelphia. But when I came back, I was like, okay, I'm back, because like I know how to like, like how like the accent and everything.
Yeah.
So it
No,
was
no,
just really,
I agree. I lived in Newark, New Jersey, so like that's where I'm from, and I was just like, oh man, it just feels like that. So I
Yeah,
love
and
it.
I married into a Filipino family. My husband's Filipino, so yeah, that witnessing things
That's
like
so
that,
funny.
like that moment, that moment in No Way Home, like
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
Okay, we're gonna
Love.
have to
feeling
vibe,
it.
because I mean I'm all about that karaoke still. We're all about the karaoke
Woo.
life. So
Girl, they hold me every time we have a
yeah.
family get together. They hold me hostage. They're like, "We got the songs for you."
I get the mic. I get the yeah.
Like
All
I
right, all
can't
right.
eat unless I sing.
Oh man, all right, all right. Let's break it down. Let's get into this. All right. So the episode or the movie starts off with Gwen this time, and she's basically telling her, "Hi, my name is Gwen," but it's almost like she's telling it from a third person point of view, and we see her drumming with her band, the Mary Janes, which I thought was pretty cute.
That
That
was
was
cool.
cute, yeah.
Yeah, and then they go and they explain her story, and this time they explain it with a lot more detail. We find about how Ned used to bully Peter. We hear J.K. Simmons in the background, who is always played by the same guy, which he's like he's a Nexus level being because he's in everything.
It-
Always the same guy.
if there's
And
one thing Jason's gonna be, it's J.K. Simmons' voice. Yes.
yeah, we love it. We love it.
Every time.
And then you see her basically like talk about her story about Peter, how he turned into a lizard, how he was his best friend and he died. And you can see that she has been really affected by it. And you can kind of see in the colors, they're like blue and pastel kind of colors because she feels her sadness. And then she's not connecting with her dad. And then even though she's not getting along with him, when he offers the hug and she takes it, that was such a cute moment. That's such a cute moment. Marguerite, I know you're a parent. How do you feel about that?
I mean, yeah, like I mean, my daughter is a daddy's girl, and just to be able to see that and witness that, because sometimes like I mean, and I could just imagine like having like having a dad that has to be tough, right? And so whenever I see that moment, that was like really touching, but also just like the expectations, right, of like who she was supposed to be, and having to hide her identity, and that went against what he thought was important. So like that moment of like, like I mean, her story arc was like it was very powerful, but it was also kind of like it was heartbreaking, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what it kind of started as, like, she's, one, it's like I mean, she has no friends, and which actually does speak, I mean, and I'll go all like heady. It's like all these kids who went through the pandemic, no friends, so I'm just feeling like that's probably something that speaks to a lot of young folks who have been isolated, and now they're trying to like reconnect, but it could still be hard. But to be able to connect with like to see the love of family like as a theme is that's always like a beautiful positive thing, because if it was like Disney, it'd be like, oh, be quiet, dad, like they're always like all
Yeah.
super dumb, and I mean, there's a lot more, just the Spider-Man story, like it's just always like touches me because of it doesn't have those same kind of tropes, like like family and connection is still important, and part of that journey, their hero's journey. So I was
Yeah.
feeling it. Yeah.
Speaking of tropes, I did like the fact that yes, she has like a dad who kind of doesn't understand, but you see like little bits of him being not a tropey dad. There's things about him that's like very unique where he's like a little bit more understanding. Like you see the trans kid sign. You see he's wearing a patch with trans
Mhm.
kids. He's someone who's like trying, right? So
Mhm.
he does seem like a dad that's kind of trying and who's like trying to be there for his daughter. And they're people who basically love each other, but kind of don't understand each other. It's the relationship that I feel like they kind of have. Nikki, what are your thoughts on that?
Shoot, on what exactly?
On
You're
her
right. Yeah.
on
There
her
are like four
relationship with
different
her
things
dad.
there.
I know. On her relationship with her dad, and a little bit of like how, you know, I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot because there's a lot in just one panel. There's a lot going on. There's a, you know, allegory of like, you know, a trans kid, and there's a relationship with her father. There's a lot going on in just that one scene, and this movie barely started yet, and we get this.
Yeah, very much. I mean, anytime I see any healthy displays of emotion between a girl and a father, I get very jealous. Because my dad is in the ground, and I will talk shit on him until I'm in the ground. But the internet knows that. But I mean, that was nice to see. And I think it's nice to get some background into Gwen and some of the trauma and the struggles she's gone through, so we can kind of understand some of her choices and decisions later on in the movie. And I've always thought like it's very, very interesting, and I'm still like I think I'm still like intellectualizing or thinking about, you know, what to say about this. But it's interesting that, you know, we have two Spider-Men or Spider people with police officer dads. And, you know, given the relationship between, you know, the police and people of color, and you know, and one of these characters, the main character Miles, is a person of color. He's a Black Latino boy. And so, you know, just kind of I don't know, reconciliating that cognitive dissonance, like, you know, being part of a marginalized community, or you know, or supporting marginalized communities, and then having a parent that's in the force, you know, and then both of them being, you know, Spider people, you know, who are also protecting and defending the people in the way that they see, which is it's completely opposite from what their dads, you know, see as power and responsibility and whatnot. So I think that's a very interesting juxtaposition to be dealing with in these movies. And like I said, I'm still thinking about it. Like I'm still, you know, thinking about how to process it and like what to even say, you know?
Yeah, that's a lot to process, because you have to, because they are shown as like, you know, the protagonist's parent, but then there's also this meta commentary that's kind of happening in the background where you're just kind of like,
and they're good.
I don't know.
And that's the thing, they're good parents. They're good parents, and they seem, you know, good and moral at what they do. But we still have this discourse in the real world where the things that we have to deal with. So yeah, very interesting.
True. Jazz, in the movie, the Vulture comes in, and he's like the old Leonardo DiCaprio, not DiCaprio, Da Vinci.
I mean,
the Vulture was dating a young girl under 25. He was doing the Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh my God.
What did you think about the Vulture Renaissance image and stuff like that? What do you think of that? That was pretty cool.
It was a nice touch. They brought in all sorts of different elements, and I know it was Marguerite earlier mentioning about the colors in the movie and how everything was done so well. Like the animation, it was interesting because the animation style of that scene, especially with the scenes of the Vulture in it, were different than the other animation styles throughout the movie. Like they made it like, I feel like, how I'm gonna describe it's like there were less frames per second in his animation than there were in other animations, and like it was meant to be, you know, something that's even older school. And so it was a very nice touch, beautifully done. The voice actor was perfect. Like the colors were so on point. I will always, you know, speak about the colors. Like I love the color grading in the entire movie. So good.
Yeah. No, they actually mentioned that in the first one, because what happens is in Miles' images, they had him at a different frame rate to make him be a little bit more clunky. And then at the end, when he like is sure of himself, they had him in a different frame rate to make his animation more smooth. So they're very like, they do all that stuff on purpose. They're very intentional with that, which I think is really cool.
So cool.
You're on.
And then after that, Miguel O'Hara shows up, which is 2099 Blue Panther, which I but he ain't. And he comes up and he's so intimidating and he comes off so scary. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And then Gwen is just giving it back to him, and they're kind of just going at each other and also trying to save this, what is it? A museum, I believe, the Guggenheim. And then
Guggenheim,
they do
yes.
mention Doctor Strange and Earth 19999, which is like 1 point for Iman Vellani because she's been saying that it's 1999 and not 616.
Right.
So point for her. I know Kevin Feige's out there like, oh damn these guys.
I heard that they didn't collaborate with Marvel Studios to be able to use that line. Like they just threw that. That's what I heard.
He's
word,
mad.
word on the
Feige's
street.
mad.
Daddy Feige's got to be pissed. He's steaming.
I can see Iman Vellani just like dancing in front of him, like, yeah. It's so funny. Oh man. If we get to interview her for the Marvel, that's the first thing I'm gonna ask her.
Oh my God.
Oh man. So the other thing is they talked about how the Vulture can reanimate himself because he's from the hammer space. And I was like, what is the hammer space? And I just realized that in the second movie, Spider-Pig gives him a hammer and they can pull out things from anywhere and it could go anywhere. So that's what the hammer space is. So I thought that was really cool how they use animation, and different rules apply to different people from their different Earths. So like just because like the hammer pig can pull out stuff from anywhere doesn't mean anyone can. So I thought that was really, really cool. And then we see Jessica Drew show up. Nikki, what are your thoughts on Jessica Drew? Because she came out like a badass.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Well, first of all, to see a black Spider Woman is awesome. And I know, like, first of all, she's voiced by Issa Rae, and Issa is one of my, I guess, idols when it comes to just everything. So that was iconic. I feel like that was an iconic moment. And her being pregnant, I know, stirred up a lot of controversy. Everything, like, it stirred up a lot of controversy, I suppose, amongst the fanboys before the movie even came out.
They know this is a cartoon, right?
This is a cartoon. Like, you know this, right? Like she's endangering this unborn child and everything, blah blah blah. Meanwhile, Peter B. Parker is swinging around with Mayday, being like, "I'm being a bad parent," like out, like straight out. So, but I think it was really nice to have her presented that way. And I don't know if this is like, too meta or like serious to say, but like a lot of a lot of cis women and childbearing people were told that once you become a mother, your life is over, and you can't do anything, and you are just housebound, and like that's just the end of you being able to do anything cool or independent or active ever again. And to have even animated like a representation of someone who is pregnant and still definitely doing all those things, still within reason, mind you, like, and just like I know a lot of friends that have been pregnant and they stayed very, very active until they had their baby, and and they remain so it's like it may not be like the biggest message of the film, but I think just having that little representation in there is very important. Because it does send that little subtle message or subtle reminder of like, you can be a bunch of different things, as a woman, and
absolutely,
and be valid, and it's okay.
That's cool. Yeah, thanks for that input. That's really great. Marguerite, what about you? What are your thoughts on Jessica Drew?
I mean, I was just like, look, if her job was to like fight, like be Spider-Woman, then it would make sense. Right. And, I mean, I was teaching. I mean, I was visibly pregnant when, when that one wasn't, like when I was carrying that one, she had to raid the video, like when she was little. But yeah, and I mean, I thought it was like it added richness to that universe. Right. Like, because a lot of times in cartoons, like they flatten the characters, like where they don't, like, or even, like some shows, like some movies, like they don't change their clothes ever. Like, how long have they been traveling? They still the same outfit, but like this kind of like adding that richness to the world. And and like I said, like this movie like had a lot about family, and that and trying to balance work and family. And sometimes like you work and your kids are in the background or they're there, and and there's things we may think are like innocuous, but it's like, like driving a car, but like these are superhumans. So she has that like, real good gut instinct, and is able to, I mean, they did what they did. And so, I mean, I just thought, and there was like some jokes, like when she was just saying that, like she found someone who was really hot. Like, I got to get the exact quote.
I want to know who that is. I want to know who that is.
I mean, I was like,
why should be Idris?
Like,
Idris Alba is her husband.
Yeah, like, but I'm just like, so now I'm wondering, like, who's gonna play him? Like, how are we gonna like, because it's like, obviously there's like what happens in the comics, but then you have this remix of the characters, and so like sometimes like I have a hard time following. So I'm just like, I'm down this rabbit hole trying to figure out things and match things. But I was just like, okay, like, I mean, I love Issa Rae. It was just really great to see her, be like, no, she's just like really about her business, but still funny, and still like a woman. And I think it's also important too, because a lot of times when they imagine like women as superheroes, it's like you're untouchable and you can't have all those things, and that you can't have like like whether it's like love and relationships and even procreate and to create, but this is what we're seeing, like the next generation, so like I felt like that, to see a Black woman be able to do all those things, like that was really great.
Yeah, no, love to see it. I really thought. And then later on, when you see the face down or face off with Gwen Stacy and her dad, and she takes off the mask and her dad still tries to arrest her, she's the one that has sympathy for her. She's the one that convinces Miguel to kind of take her in that universe. And then she kind of mentors her after that. It really shows that like she has this capacity for compassion that like Miguel doesn't, and like Miguel would probably be so much worse if she wasn't there with him. So,
oh man,
that's how bad Miguel is, because the fact that like he would be so much worse without her. So all right, let's get into our main guy. Let's get into Miles. So Miles is back in the world. He's been Spider-Man for a while. I think for about 1 year and 4 months. He's been beating up bad guys, and then he finds the Spot. And he's like, they're just the villain of the week. And honestly, when I saw that, I was like a little disappointed, because I'm like, the Spot is a pretty good villain. For to just use them as a villain of the week for an intro, and then he goes away, and then some other villain shows up. That's kind of a waste. But turns out they knew better. They gave him character development. They took their time with the villain, which is not something these shows do or movies do. They don't take their time with the villain sometimes. Like, that's what made the Spot so good. What was your initial thoughts when you saw the Spot's Jazz?
So my first immediate thought was, that looks like my dog, because I have a Dalmatian, and so she has the same spots everywhere. But then as the movie progressed, right, just like my dog, her spots changed. And then he got more spots, and then he got more power, and then he got even more power. And I was like, oh God, this is character development on both ends. This is cool. Yeah. And so I enjoyed watching both Miles' journey, but as well as Spot's journey. And then at some point I was hoping Spot would figure out, like, yes, you have a shit situation. I get it. But you can't just keep blaming one person for it over and over. Like, move on, my guy. But, that is the one part.
He wouldn't be
that's how it's made.
and I love the fact when they go into the backstory, how he got made from a bagel. They threw a bagel at him, and that's his villain origin story. Which I was like, what? And then you realize, wait a second, there was a bagel thrown at some guy. Oh man, if the amount of I was gonna say, like, if I had a nickel for every time the bagel started a multiverse, I would have 2 nickels, which is not a lot, but still weird that it happened twice.
Yeah, it's been a symbol
everywhere.
Yeah,
everything.
The bagel there. So then I was like, wait, like what came first? So it was, there's this bagel. It's become the multiverse badge. That's the badge of the multiverse, is the bagel. Everything bagel. It is.
And then we see Miles, who's supposed to be, he's fighting a guy, but he's supposed to be at a parent-teacher conference, and you see this like guidance counselor saying some like racist shit that she shouldn't be saying, like, "Oh, you're an immigrant family, yeah, use that." And I was like, "Oh man, the times I've been told that, like, oh yeah, you don't use it. What have you been through? Have you come from a war-torn country?" I'm like, no, man, not every Muslim country is war-torn. Like, oh man, I thought that was pretty funny though. But the fact that they use it, and then you find out he's got a B in Spanish, and his mom gets so mad at him.
That is a thing with, okay, as a Latina,
As a native speaker, yeah.
Well, those of us that we either grew up like second generation or first generation. I'm second generation. Like, we learned Spanish at home, but it's not the same as like, how people that speak English can fail English.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same. Like, we can survive conversationally, like literally in the real world, speaking real world English. But when it comes to the grammar and like all the technical rules and stuff, a lot of us have difficulty. And so we have to watch some freaking white kid who's following all the rules get an A+. And we get a B or C sometimes, even though like, we're the one that's going to be able to go out into the world and survive with the language. But it's just like, it's not fair.
It's very true, because English rules are meant to be broken when you talk with like familiar people, right? And then you can't be talking like proper people, like proper language when you're talking to people. You just sound weird. So yeah, I get that. That totally makes sense.
Exactly.
But his mom was mad when she snapped.
Care.
I love that when she snapped it, the Puerto Rican flag shows up. It's so funny. That was so good. That was hilarious.
There's a lot of details like that. Like, there's definitely like a lot of effort and much needed effort to emphasize like Miles is Latino, because there is a lot of anti-Blackness in the Hispanic Latino community. A lot of people don't really understand what it is to be Latino or Hispanic. Those aren't exactly interchangeable, but for simplicity's sake, because to be a Latino, Hispanic, I guess, it just means that you have heritage from a Spanish-speaking country. We have a mix of European, Black, and Indigenous blood, and the people that are Latino that most people associate with being Latino or Latinx, Latine, are people that look like Jennifer Lopez, Ava Longoria. Like, nobody thinks about the fact that Lupita Nyong'o is Hispanic. Like, like, and so, and
I knew that.
And
That's my
like,
wife.
It's like within our culture, there's like a lot of effort. It's called mejorando la raza, like purifying the race. And so there's a lot of effort to like, don't bring a Black person home. Don't have babies with a Black person. Like, don't mess up the bloodline. Like, keep it as not Black as possible. And so, so when we're talking about like Latinx and Latina heroes, Miles very often would get looked over. And so for them to add little things in there, like the Puerto Rican flag when she snaps at him, or just like the retirement party and the kind of music that's being played and the food that's being served, the plantanos, everything, like to hammer home like, no, he is Black and he is Latino. That is that. Like, you can be both, and you guys need to learn. You guys need to learn that. You got to learn what these things mean.
And embrace that, which I found was very, because because a lot of the Afro-Latino actors, like, they get a lot more roles, right, within the Black community, but then sometimes, like, they're kind of demand to, like, erase their Latino identity in those roles, like, and so it's like they're not rewriting them to be like, okay, we're gonna like if when Laz Alonso's playing something, we're like, okay, we're gonna make that an Afro-Cuban role, but it's like, but also like within like Univision and Telemundo, like, I'm not seeing those roles, like, unless they have like some weird historical thing, like, so I mean, it's like sometimes like the way that they deal with race too, and how they represent Afro Latinos. So I know some people are working on that, like they're actually like doing that in social movement. But I think it's really important that we like uplift the narratives of Afro Latinos. And so to see Miles Morales, like it's just so powerful. Like, and to see that so many people see him as a hero.
Yeah.
That allows us to really understand and be less microaggressive towards bicultural people, biracial people. Because I mean, it's kind of like not clear, like like I mean, when it comes to like like with like Latinidad and like identity, like is that a ethnicity? It's like,
Well,
I wouldn't necessarily say like his mom was of a different race, but a different culture. Because it's like you can't really, like I wouldn't just be like, oh, he's biracial, but it's like he's definitely bicultural.
well, I'm definitely like several, like I consider myself mixed black. And I
Mhm.
think one thing for people to know about Latinidad is like being Afro Latino doesn't necessarily mean that you're mixed. It
Mhm.
just means you could be just like basically in the 90% African DNA and Hispanic. It just
Mhm.
means that you have heritage from a Spanish speaking country. So even when people think of like people like that are Afro Latinx or Afro Latina, they'll think of people like me. I have, I'm brown, but I'm a little lighter skinned and I have looser textured curls. And Miles kind of fits some of those characteristics, but he actually looks a little more like my brother, who is darker skinned and he has a little tighter textured hair. He presents more African DNA, and so even so like he is mixed race, but you do not have to be mixed race to be Afro Latino. And I think that's another misconception that people I guess haven't unlearned, is that they see Afro Latinidad or Afro Latinity, whatever, being
Mhm.
being one type of phenotype, I guess. The same way
Mm.
they see being Latino um as I guess a race, when it's really not. Like Hispanic people, this part of the world, we are mixed with European, indigenous, and black, just different percentages of them,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Wow.
Miles's mom is most likely she is she probably has some African DNA in her, but she's probably mostly European and indigenous, based on her features, because Miles's parentage is basically the same breakdown as mine. My
Mhm.
parents look exactly like his, you
Yeah, that's
know.
funny.
I
Um,
love that.
so yeah, just like some stuff to throw out about that. I know it's a lot, but it's just so
Now,
No, I
important.
love
we're gonna
learning
clip
that.
this. Like this is gonna
Yeah.
become a clip for us. We're gonna put it online. It's gonna go viral. This is important
And
stuff to talk
Even
about.
when you see like
first
when
of
you
all,
see
any
your
clip with Nikki
family,
goes viral.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's really great because I mean in California, like where there's less like of like the Afro Caribbean, like whether it's from the English speaking or Spanish speaking or even French speaking, so like there's less of that there. So there's like usually like kind of like erasures of Central American, Caribbean, like even like how we understood. So there's like that hegemony, but it was like that being in a movie theater with a lot of mestizo, like like Chicanos. It was like I was like, that's good for them to see that too and to
Yeah.
relate, like, and I
Yeah.
Mhm.
felt like that was like very powerful. And like they're hearing Spanish and relating to a character,
Yeah.
and that like I just like I mean I love those connections and intersections. And so like I just feel like I mean he is just like a really great hero for so many people, and even those who don't have those connections, right? But they could understand like trying to balance the expectations of your family members who are just like you're supposed to represent both these cultures fully, and it's a lot to try to live up to. And so that
Yeah.
being part of his story arc, right? And then he's also like I mean he's absolutely brilliant. And then when you are that like exceptional student of color, but now you're going to be plopped out of that space and go to a predominantly white space, or just where
Mhm.
people are meant to shed, like you're supposed to shed your culture to be at the because he was trying to go to Princeton, right? It's like
Princeton,
Princeton.
yeah,
yeah, go
Jersey.
to
What up,
Princeton.
Jersey?
Jersey.
I know. I'm originally from Jersey. Oh my gosh, no, not too evil
When they
now.
said Princeton, I was like, I was the first one in the theater. I was like, Jersey.
I know. I was just like, so it's like I'm a Jersey girl. I was born in Trenton, first five
Yes.
years. So, like, so she had the Jersey thing. I cracked up because I knew like kind of like how it's perceived. And but it was just really like, but also that alienation, right, when you're going. The other thing about the parenting is like, you could just see like his longing, like he wants to tell he wants his mother to know this about him, like, and
Right.
it's just like that is such a powerful allegory for so many young people, right?
Yeah.
It's like that they can't share their full selves with their parents, and it's heartbreaking, right? And so I just hope we all walk away with that kind of like deeper understanding of just like you love your kid, you love your kids unconditionally. I don't understand family members that do any other way, but I'm here. I mean, one of the things I definitely want to do is do more support for youth who are kicked out, whether they're like vigilantes with spider webs and stuff,
Yeah. No, I'm really glad that you brought that up, especially the thing about her mom talking about him being alienated, because the speech that she gives him, like, I was like, oh, I wish someone gave me this speech when I was a kid because I needed to hear it. I was like, my inner child is healing just listening to that. And for someone to say, like, people are going to make you feel like you don't belong, but you do. You have every right to be there. And I was an immigrant. I came here when I was 3 years old. I barely spoke the language. My parents didn't speak the language, so I had to translate for them. And I couldn't tell them things because I was like, yo, they're so far removed from this culture that like it wouldn't even be a point. So everything I went through, I'm the oldest kid, I went through alone. And like I always felt like I didn't belong no matter where I was, whether I was in Newark or whether I was in college. It was always like I'm the odd one out, and just got so used to it. And I didn't know what it felt like to belong for a long time. And I feel like a lot of people need to hear that stuff, man. It was such a great speech. I really loved it. And then you see how it affected him at the end. Like everyone's trying to tell him that he doesn't belong, that he's a mistake. And he goes, no, I'm gonna do my own thing. And you can tell he didn't even have to call back to what his mom said. You knew it was what his mom said that drove him to that. And I just loved it, man. It was such a great moment. So I really, really love that moment, and thanks for bringing that up. And thanks for everything you guys are saying, because you guys, that was an educational
You
like
just
20
like,
minutes.
Amazing takes left and right. I'm like, all right, cool.
We can do this. All right, let's get to the fun parts, because like, all right, then they go into the multiverse, and we go and see the Lego universe, and like, yo, the Lego universe is a little bitch, man, because Miguel said you're my top guy. I was like, this little snitch.
That was animated. That was animated by a 14-year-old.
Yes, he actually has the whole thing animated, and you can watch it on YouTube and stuff. It's great. 14 years old, so much talent. That's just amazing. That's just amazing. And then we see all these Spider-Man come out. Actually, no, before that, Gwen shows up and she goes into his room. First of all, why does this girl have her shoes on his bed? Like, I don't understand that. That made me so mad. And then
you know what it is.
He opens up
and then she calls their parents by their first name. Like, no, you don't do that. You don't do that in immigrant cultures. That's two things that you don't do in immigrant culture. You don't bring your shoes in the house and on someone's bed, and you don't call people's parents by their first name. The third thing she did, which annoyed me, was she took his toy out of the box, which is a nerd thing.
Not wrapping,
yeah, but I was
That's
like,
a nerd
damn,
thing.
Gwen, you need boundaries. Oh man, that made me so mad.
That's another little detail to throw in, that the joke that you'll get if you come from a non-white family, like, oh no, first name, or when Miles said whatever to his parents, everyone like, oh no, like, oh.
All right, now I want to get to the part where I'm dressed like. So I am dressed like kind of like Bob, and oh my god. Spider-Man India was amazing. Because I've read the Spider-Man India comics, they're actually not, they're like, okay, they're not great, but the redesign was amazing. It was so cool. And they didn't just redesign his character, they redesigned his personality too. Because in the
Yeah.
comics, he's more like the regular Peter Parker, brooding, sad, nerdy. This one, he was just so optimistic, which makes sense because his name actually means, I think, pure sun. So he's more optimistic. And when they showed Mumbattan, I was like, this is amazing. This is fantastic. And it's funny because they actually did the whole India scene and they were like, this is garbage. Like, it doesn't feel authentic. So they brought in the actor who voiced them and they brought in Hassan Minaj to come and help them and redo the entire scene. And they redid the entire thing because they were like, what we had wasn't authentic enough. And they redid him. They redid his like clothes. They redid what he's supposed to say. So like, and I knew that like the Chai tea joke
That's a Hassan. That's a Hassan. I knew it. I was like, that's Hassan.
He's been saying that joke since 2012. Man needs to retire that joke. But I'm glad. I'm glad the broader whatchamacallit universe now knows that joke, and I think that's pretty funny. And the other joke that I thought was really funny, who like, here's the traffic here, here's the traffic here, and here's what the British stole all our freaking stuff. And
I was so happy about that line.
Even in a world where Manhattan is Mumbai, the British still stole our stuff. What the hell?
I didn't even think about that. They're in a different universe, and the British are still doing fuck shit.
Yes.
You can't stop the British, man. They'll take your shit.
In the multiverse.
If there's one thing they're gonna do across the multiverse, is take other people's shit.
Steal your shit. They're like colonizing, bro. Can't stop, won't stop. Oh man, that was really, really funny. And I love his shoes and stuff because he's barefoot. And then I was like, you know what, man? Technically, all spider people should be barefoot because how are your Nikes sticking to the wall? I've never understood that.
I think about that all the time. I think about it all the time. Right. Since 2002, I've been thinking about it. Over McGuire.
Yes, exactly. And then I just love how much story they gave him, and they were like, he's doesn't need to work out. His hair is from coconut oil, prayer, and genetics, which is like, I loved it. It was so great, and it was just such a fun little thing. And then he has this like weapon, kind of like a yo-yo thing that he uses with his web, which I thought with the bangles, I thought that was amazing, fantastic. I want to know, I know why we liked it. I want to know people outside of the culture how they felt about Spider-Man India. I want to go with Nikki. What are your thoughts?
I mean, honestly, like, as you know, as a Black person, I'm so happy to see myself represented. And I feel secondhand joy when I see other cultures and other communities that I am not a part of, or maybe I may be adjacent to. I get such a joy from seeing that and knowing that somebody feels extremely seen by seeing that. And I just get to see we just get to see something new. We just get to see, you know, different kinds of people represented on screen in animation. And so that's like kind of how I feel. It's similar to how I felt, you know, just watching all of Miss Marvel. You know, there's, you know, parts, of course, there's parts that I can relate to because, you know, I'm a person of color and a granddaughter of immigrants, and that at some point our stories are going to be the same. But there's also cultural elements that I'm not completely aware of, or cultural elements that I remember because I grew up with, you know, Desi Indian, you know, friends when I was little. And I'm like, oh, that little element is actually a part of my childhood. Like that food, these dances, like, you know, like that's a little itty bitty part of, you know, my experience too, and witnessing the experiences of others. So yeah, like I said, I just get such joy from knowing that someone else is feeling so incredibly seen the way that I want to be seen, you know.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. Marguerite, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, gosh, I don't want to get all choked up. Like, I mean, I get all teary-eyed because I ugly cry. But with Ms. Marvel, with the representation, like, like I felt like it was like that expansion of that world, right? And I mean, and just given like the pop, like South Asia, like there's just so little media about it, the ways that it's like not represented. and I have a lot of South Asian friends. Like my daughter goes to predominantly South Asian school, and you know, and I also knew like when they first started Ms. Marvel and their writing, and I just thought of like all the things that went into that. And so like when I first like saw the when they went back to Pakistan, like I cried. Like I was
Yeah.
just like that. Like when I'm able to see representation and being like in a screenwriter's room where we had to work on, you know, trying to get storylines and the jokes and represented different cultures. Like that was actually the first time where I was like, oh wow, they got representation right. Was like
Yeah.
it was like the person how I imagined them, you know, like brown skin and looking, and when they got an actor that looked like so it's like it's and just like when the actor said like normally he didn't get parts because of his skin color, but like when
Right.
you have like was it I can't pronounce it.
Mumbattan.
Mumbattan.
Like, it was just like this, you know, it was like this explosion of this world that I saw, like, right, like with during Ms. Marvel, that was just so exciting, so interesting, and like I was just like, and he just was so funny and frantic and like charismatic, and
Yeah.
I just was like, and just like the details, like it was like, and like I was just absolutely like, I was like, I love him, and I just like, and I already heard some, you know, like little things that were happening, and I was like, okay, I got to get off Twitter because I don't want any more
Yeah. No
spoilers.
spoilers.
Like I already know like people
Yeah.
are really liking this, but my daughter was like, I love him, like she was so like just really thought he was just so great and was like laughing, you know, and just excited about it, and that is shaping how she sees the world and how she sees heroes, like the people that she knows, and to see that represented, like that diversity. And I'm just like, just to like, there's a lot of people in America that don't know, like, and they're just like kind of weirded, like they want to keep that, like they want to keep their world really small, and maybe they look at some Vikings and they watch another Viking show and another Viking thing.
Yeah.
And you're just like, dang, you don't have seasonings in your food. Like,
Yeah.
so amazing. Wouldn't you want to be in one of these worlds and move between that? Well, that's what
Yes.
it's like being a person of color. That's what it's like being like adjacent to a lot of things. Like for me, it's like I'm like, okay, like I can go to all these places and relate and connect with people, and like, you know, even like the learn different languages. And I'm like, why would somebody just want to be so narrow? Because it was just really like just going into that alternate universe was just really amazing. So I loved it. I loved him. I really like, you know, I mean you said that Spider-Man India, like it's the storyline isn't as exciting, but I hope that they spin out stories based on this one.
Yeah.
It's
So
so much.
that's what they're hearing they're going to do, because that's actually what they've done
Mm.
for some other Spider-Man. So they might relaunch his with the better story. So I'm really excited about that. But there are some really cool things that people didn't notice, because like not only did they mention like Spider-Man India, which had a lot of like he had a lot of Hindu stuff in his costume, but Officer Singh is a Sikh, and they don't have any Sikh representation ever.
Mhm.
So to
I
see
saw
that
a
was
few.
really
I
great.
saw a few in
Yeah.
Turning Red.
Yes.
Oh, Turning Red, yeah. That's
Lincoln, you might
Yeah.
miss it.
definitely
Yeah.
more modern. That's
Lincoln,
why.
you might miss
Yeah,
it.
he was security
Yeah.
guard. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Turning
Yeah, the
Red.
security guard. Yeah.
But that was really, really cool to see that. I'm glad to see like the Sikh community get some representation too.
Mhm.
Love that for them. And the next person who I think just stole this entire movie, Spider-Punk. Like, oh my God, did
God.
he steal this movie?
Every
So,
clown.
when I saw him
Every-
first, I did not like him. Because I was like, who is this third wheel trying to get between Miles and Gwen? And I was a little
Damn it,
salty.
homie.
Oh, that's your beef. Yeah.
She's wearing his shoes. She stays over at his dimension. I was like, oh, this is making me heart hurt. Like, don't do this to me. And then he ended up to be like the coolest character.
The
He
best.
takes off his mask. Goes, I was always this cool. I was just like,
His anarchism was so amazing. I just loved his like punk, like his anarchism was like so dope. Like I was just like all the lines, like he was just like breaking stuff. He's like, I'm gonna do this. You know, he was so subversive, and then you didn't know what he was doing. Like at first you're just like thinking he was just messing with stuff just because and being oppositional, but it was with a purpose. So I was just like, okay, these like, you know, anti-establishment, like we need that embedded. Like if you have a utopia, whether that's like a socialist utopia, we need Spider-Punk there, so he can like make sure he checks all the power imbalances. But it was like I just, yeah, and his swag, like I was just like, I was
Yeah.
floating, but I just remember when Daniel Kaluuya, like when he was doing interviews and women were floating, because I was like float, just like that. I was just like, oh, he says me floating, and then
Right.
you know,
I
well,
love
but
when
we
they had
don't
the
get
black. I love when they had the black hole, and he goes like, "It's capitalism." Like I was like, "Yeah."
I
Oh
think
man.
I believe that I could be wrong, but I don't think that I am. That a lot of that is Daniel Kaluuya just going off in the voice
Yeah.
booth, because I think they wrote what they wrote originally. Like it was all right, but it just wasn't hitting the same, and they had Daniel just come in with like that genuine like South London slang,
Yeah.
like
He's
just
like, "Hate.
you
I
know,
hate the
and
AM. I hate the PM." I was like, "What does that mean?"
I
And
hate
then it
the
was like,
I hate the
"I
AM,
hate
I
the
hate
mo-"
the AM.
Yeah. And I was like, "What does that mean?" And one of my friends told me like, he hates the mornings and he hates the prime minister. I was like, "Oh, that's what PM means." I was like, "Yo,
Yeah.
this is amazing. I love this guy." So it
Yeah,
was
another touch of
so good.
authenticity, another nice touch of authenticity to like,
Oh.
throw
And
that in
then
there. I
he
love that.
gives
I
like
love it.
Miles the thing. You gotta give you your whole palm, and then you see that come back. He was just all over the place. You
Mm,
see him stealing stuff throughout the whole time, and then at the end, you see he makes the watch, and it didn't register that he was just stealing stuff in their room that nobody was saying anything. What a great character! I think he really stole the show for everybody.
he,
Yeah,
And
he's definitely the best Spider-Man,
he did.
Spider hero out of all of them. Like straight up, he was my favorite hero by the end of it.
yeah, no, that was really good. Any other things about Spider-Punk before we move on to the all of the Spider people when they go and they visit all of them?
Oh my gosh. Not really, except I think that Spider-Punk was the one spider person that not the one, but the one that my husband was looking forward to seeing the most. And
Yeah,
it was really cool for them to uh, pull out all these different spider people from different parts of the comics, and then also like
yeah,
different parts of our past, our history with
yeah.
Spider-Man. Like
Malala
it's so cool.
Spider.
All right, so I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about that. Somebody
Yeah.
somebody mentioned that. Who mentioned, somebody in the comments just mentioned that. So they said Spider Woman hijab represented. And I could not believe that happened. I was like, 'cause I knew we were getting Spider-Man India, but like Malala Windsor, and I was like, what in the world? And she's Spider-Man UK, I believe. And it's
Hmm.
so wild that they did that. They did a redesign for her. They named her after the most famous Pakistani trevor, because this is Malala Yousaf. And like it was just wild to me. I didn't expect that. And like she's wearing a hijab in the form of the spider thing, and I'm just like, this is
Yeah.
awesome. And then somebody was like, why would she need a hijab? I'm like, well, maybe she wants to take her mask off and still like be able to like
Right?
be a hijab,
You gotta
still be
blend in
covered.
sometimes, and
Yeah. I loved it, man. It was
It
so
was good.
great.
I screamed. I was like,
Oh,
oh, normally I don't get all excited about. I mean, like, because sometimes like hijab representation is token,
Yes.
but I felt like it was just like there were so many spiders, but it was also like the Malala reference and just like how she came and like each one was like drawn different, right? Like from
Yeah.
that time period, and I was just like, this is so amazing. I just like it was just I wasn't expecting all of that, honestly. Like I was not expecting like so because she's like it's a few elite, like so that's why she was saying
Yeah.
Miles couldn't come, but it was like he was like there's so many people. What are you talking about?
I
So,
thought I dreamed it. I didn't think it was real. I had to ask my brother, did you see a hijabi Spider-Man? I was like,
yeah.
I literally thought I dreamt it. I was like, no, that can't be real. It was so wild. And I think she's actually played by a famous actress too, her voice actor. And someone told me, and I just can't remember who she is.
I'm
But
about
it
to
was
look it up.
really,
I
yeah.
know,
I think her
yeah.
name is Sarah something. But I don't know what she's in, but something really popular recently. But it was so good to see that. And they showed her a few times. They showed her make that first joke. Then they showed her chasing Spider-Man. But then they also showed her when they showed Death Alley, where like they showed all the Spider-Man and somebody important in their life died. They showed her again. And I was like, whoa, they showed her a lot. And one of the greatest things about that, nobody thought that we would ever see a Spider-Man with a hijab. But now that we've seen one, The fan art is going crazy. I've seen about 12 of them the next day, and everyone's making their own. Everyone's creating art, and everyone's making all these different type of hijabi spider people, and it's so beautiful. It's amazing. And not only that, but like technically, if the Spider Universe exists, that means anything you draw is canon. Everything you draw is canon. Any Spider-Man that you can come up with is canon. If you draw yourself in a Spider-Woman hijab outfit, if you cosplay as a Spider-Man hijabi, you are canon to the Spider Universe.
Cool.
And I think that is amazing.
All true.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we're gonna do it, right? We're just gonna make our own spider.
We're gonna do it,
Neebs, by definition, you are a Spider-Man, and you are now canon in the universe.
Yeah, technically I am. I mean, it's going to be awesome. I can't believe it. So here are some other Spider people that we got to see. We saw Ben Reilly, who was voiced by Andy Samberg, who was the super emo one. I thought that was really, really funny. He's got the whole clone saga happening for him. And then the Insomnia Spider-Man, that got one of the biggest cheers in my theater because people love that PS2 game. Oh no, PS5 game. And then the Prowler, dude. When we saw Donald Glover, my theater erupted.
I was screaming, crying, throwing up.
And you know,
oh my god.
And people know why that's so important because, you know, obviously I don't have to repeat the story, but look it up. The story of Donald Glover and Miles Morales and Spider-Man, it's an amazing story, and it just comes full circle. and
I'll sum it up in 2 seconds. Miles Morales exists because of Don Glover. So there you go.
Yeah, pretty much.
All in all.
And then we see Miguel O'Hara, and then he's like explaining everything. First of all, like Miles is trying to speak Spanish with them and trying to connect and stuff like that, and he's still like, no, he's super angry, and like he didn't need to be like a bitch to Miles, man. I mean, I get why, but like it was really wild. And he tries to explain to him canon events, and like I know canon events. I watch Doctor Who. I know about like how canon events work and stuff. So
Fixed points in time.
Exactly. Yep. So I'm like, oh, I'm with you. I'm here.
I'm a Whovian too.
Yeah. Nice.
I'm old school. Like I don't know, like because I was just like I got to keep the old school memories from the '80s where it was just, like really ridiculous. And just like I was like, it's too nice now. Like it was so bad back then.
Yeah. I heard.
New generation.
All right. So they're trying to get through Miles and tell him that, hey, you can't do anything. Miles putting 2 and 2 together. They trap Miles. And then Hobie goes like this, lets him remember, like, hey, this is how you break out. And then he breaks out and then makes a run for it. And then Miguel gives the warning or what is it, announcement that like, oh, you have to catch a Spider-Man. And they're like, who? Everyone points at
the pointing Spider-Man,
which is hilarious.
Great moment.
I'm so glad they put that in. They didn't do it in No Way Home, but I'm so glad they put it here.
They did do it in No Way Home, but they weren't in their costumes.
They did do it. Yeah, it was in the lab.
In the lab. Yeah. No, but this was funny. They also showed the old Uncle Ben and the Tobey Maguires. Those also got a lot of pop. I thought was really cool.
That was so cool, man. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But here's the thing, right? There were a handful of Spider-Men in the room when Miguel explained to Miles why he can't go back in time, and I'm not back in time, why he can't go back to his world and save his dad. All of them are little bitches, man. Now, the ones who were outside, they didn't know why they're stopping Miles. They just know they had to stop Miles. They don't know why. I feel like, in my opinion, my headcanon is that if they knew, I think half of them would defect. I think half of them would be like, you can't do that. Because there's some Spider-Mans Peter Parkers, who I think would do the exact same thing as Miles. But I don't know. What are your thoughts about the whole dichotomy of the saving your parents, fixed point, black holes? Who was right? Who was wrong? Are we on Miles' side? Are we on Miguel's side? Let's go into that. Nikki, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I did a video about this where I'm like, I understand Miguel's anxiety, but he's making some trauma-informed decisions, and I kind of, yeah, and like as a lot of people know, I'm a PTSD veteran, so unfortunately I'm an expert. And like one of the things one of the things about, you know, dealing with post-traumatic stress is like you will tend to catastrophize things, and your brain will pick up on, you know, just the smallest little details of everything around you to make sure that what happened to you doesn't happen again. And so it literally makes sense. It does make sense to me how Miguel turned out this way. He's literally the personification of hypervigilance. He has the entire Spider-Verse on a console. He's watching everything with a, you know, just picking through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that this doesn't happen, because honestly, like what he experienced was terrifying,
Right.
albeit technically his fault, but also how could you know that?
Yeah.
Like that's something that no one's ever done before. Like how could you know? That was absolutely terrifying. Like if I saw an entire universe disintegrate out of the space-time continuum, I'd raise my dosage too. So like so
Right, yeah.
you know I really, so like, but you know, when you're making trauma informed decisions, like sometimes you can miss some pretty obvious, you know, indicators in front of you that like what happened to you necessarily isn't going to necessarily happen in somebody else's situation. You might even think that you're trying to help, like you might think that you're doing the right thing, that you're being helpful, but you might actually like be preventing someone from living their life the way that they're supposed to. I think a lot of overprotective parents, you know, can fall into this. And from where, you know, Miles is coming from, and I think the multiverse saga in general is going to challenge how we think about time and the power of choice. And, you know, like, does trauma make us who we are? Because I've always hated that sentiment that, you know, this terrible experience made me who I am. And you know, I don't think that's very fair, because people go through some pretty terrible, like everybody goes through trauma, but some people go through some especially spicy situations where like that that is so out of the normal and that shouldn't have happened to you. And you know, language that we've told survivors to adopt is like it made you stronger. It made you better. And it's like, no, not fucking necessarily, because villains go through trauma too. If that's the truth, if that's the case, then trauma makes villains too. It's about your character, in my opinion. It's about your character, who you are, and what you choose to do with that situation. I feel like Miguel is telling Miles the trauma is what makes us who we are. So you have to go through this, right? And to tell this to a Black boy whose experience in this world is already traumatic from the moment he was born, and telling him like, you have to go, you have to suffer some more, because this is going to make you who you are. And for Miles to be like, to have the courage to say, no, intrinsically I'm already Spider-Man and I'm already worthy of being Spider-Man without this bullshit. If that's what you need to define yourself, have fun, but I'm going to do my own thing, like he said. And if I have the power to make things better, I will. You know, so and you know, especially like who he's telling this to, and you know, the speech that Rio gave him before and everything, like, you know, it just ties in so nicely from the beginning of the film. But yeah, I think like I said, I see where Miguel is coming from, but I think most of us are always going to side with Miles. Because he's challenging the status quo, and again, like there's evidence already in front of Miguel that maybe, you know, what happened to you is not the norm, because Miles has been Spider-Man for over a year now, and his universe hasn't fallen apart. And for that matter, neither has Earth 42. Is it a mess? Yeah, but is it gone?
It didn't disintegrate.
It didn't disintegrate.
So before we get into because like that's where I had the logical fallacy, because I was like, well, if he's not the real Spider-Man, then why would he have to lose his father to be part of this thing that happened?
True.
Spider-Man already happened.
Yeah.
So then that just was what got me. But I just need to take a moment as For anybody that follows me, and it was like my Dune, my Dune obsession and Oscar Isaac thirst. But I was on the thing, but I was like, and there was so much Miguel O'Hara thirst on my timeline, which I agree with. I was like the shoulder to waist.
He was caked up on a Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, I was like, he was a real sympathetic character there. I was just like, O'Hara in there watching it. Video, like it's just like that's like that ideal, like just like unattainable, traumatized, broken man that we all trying to fix. So I was just like, yeah. So like I still felt like they were trying to make him like they just had to make him like that dude,
broken.
Like,
trauma thirst.
I can fix him, and I was just like, man, they're just pulling out all our heartstrings because they just like. Because I was actually excited even when because like I didn't even know they cast him for a long time, but I was just like, but when I already did the voice, and I was like, oh, that's just gonna be so amazing. I hope he shows up. And they just like made him like Oscar Isaac on like I don't know, meth, like extra, like because he was tall. Like I was just like, dang, they really did that. So it was kind of hard because then I was like, okay, like I see what he's saying, but he didn't have to do it like that, but like so I wouldn't, like I wouldn't say he was wrong, but the point of the story is that like, are you gonna just save your dad and destroy a world? Does that make you a hero? Because we do know like most acts of heroism are you're saving your friends or your part like when in battles and stuff. It's not just because somebody's like, I'm gonna go in. And I mean, there are people that do that, but typically like heroism is like you're saving somebody that or sometimes there's an attachment. So I was just like, as opposed to like, would you save this person that you love and destroy other worlds? Or like, does that make you a villain, depending on who's telling the story? Or you let that one person die that you care about and you save the world. And so it's like, so then I was thinking about the trolley thing because I had to be like all like
right?
Trolley. Straight up the trolley problem.
I hate the trolley.
But then I was just kind of like, so then I was like kind of like, so but that took me down this rabbit hole that I was going through, and I was just like, well, because like in my faith tradition is like if you save one person, it's as if you save the world. So I could not get out of that. So it's like, okay, like what is the trolley decision like based on that? And is it just like if and you could kind of see like when they're making choices to save people with their spider webs and stuff. So it's like they're trying to save individuals, right? And then get to this, and it's just like it's whoever's in front of them. So I'm just like, there's no way that many buildings collapse without lots of casualties. So it's like your trolley problem is like you try to save those immediately in front of you, and then you go to the next, and you go to the next thing. So like I was like, are we on some American pragmatism tip? Like you just kind of like in our trolley problem, you save the one person and you try to do the best you can to like get the rest of the people out the road.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's good.
You're like, well, I tried.
Yeah. No, these are good points, man. These are amazing. That's why I'm so glad I brought you guys on, man. This is one of the best things is like a lot of podcasts. Yeah, a lot of philosophy, a lot of education going on here, man. That's why we made it a point for our podcast to be super inclusive because we want people who experience these things and who have like the culture and the background of the characters to be the ones speaking about these characters, right? If all the podcasts are just white people and they're talking about these characters of color, like they're not going to be able to eloquently say what you guys are saying. So I love that. And like you guys dropped some bombs on us, man. That was crazy. That was really
I mix it with the thirst too. So I'm just like, like here, but I'm gonna go deep there,
Yeah, we're gonna split this in 2 episodes for sure. Let's just keep going. Like
we're
well over time. This is amazing conversation. I don't want this to end.
All right, so they chase him, and he has a plan. He lures everybody away, and then he gives Miguel the shoulder touch and kind of throws him away, which I love that they brought that back. And then Gwen was really not being a good friend or ally here. I feel like, and she was going to let her dad die, which is like another thing where I'm just like, what? Damn, girl. Something else.
I I saw a theory, and that person might have a point. I can't remember who it was, but there's a theory that the reason that she hasn't gone back, well, one of the reasons that she hasn't gone back, besides the fact that her dad was trying to arrest her, was that basically if she as the spider person in her universe is not there, then maybe he won't die.
But then Miles would stay back too, then wouldn't he?
Well, they're not in the same universe.
Oh, okay.
Gwen's respective universe. So that's like, I guess a theory, I suppose, or some technicality. I don't know.
I don't know. He does say to her, "Your dad's a captain too."
The captain,
and she shrugs.
She kind of just shrugs. So
yeah.
possibly not. But
he resigned though, so then she was relieved.
Yeah, but she didn't know that at that time. But he does resign, which.
But she was like super relieved, like, "Whoo, he is no longer a captain, and he's gonna make it." So like when I saw that relief, I was just like, "Okay, that anxiety." Like, so she knew the beats of it, and so because he's like, "I quit," and she's like, like just
so relieved, yeah. But you know who did have his back? Spider-Bite, who was like, when he came into the was it the go back home machine or what it was, she could have just rebooted it, and she was like, no, she let him go back. So her and
a last moment of black solidarity.
And you know what? Spider-Man India wasn't there. My spicy Spidey, he wasn't there, but I bet he would have had his back too, because he did save the inspector in his universe. I think he would have paid him back. But yeah, that's everyone else was kind of against the spicy Spidey. I like that. All right. And then we see that he goes back home. And this is where they did such a great fake out, because I had a feeling something was going on, but I couldn't tell because of the way the scenes were placed on top of each other's. They made it look like they were in the same place. And then you find out that he gives this long speech to his mom, and he was like, "But I took them all down," and he was like, "I'm Spider-Man," and then she's like, "Who?"
It was during that scene I started looking around the room, because that's supposed to be Miles's room.
You noticed it.
None of his usual shit was there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no. I was like, is it what I think it is? And then the second watch, if you literally look when the spider's doing the go home machine, it flashes on the screen where he's going.
42, 42. Because it goes by your DNA, not where you're from.
Yeah.
And his DNA is.
And the spider changed his DNA. The spider changed his DNA.
Exactly. And then like she said like things like, "Oh, what's up with your hair?" The other thing is, she when he had the costume, she this for Comic-Con. And if you go back to the first one, Spidey also mentioned favorite for Comic-Con, and he goes, "What's Comic-Con?" So Comic-Con does not exist in Miles's world. And I was like,
"Oh my god, right?"
Yeah. So I was like, "Oh." She said that, I was like, "Oh, there's no Comic-Con. There's no Comic-Con." That's when I got it in the theater, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Right.
And then
everybody around you doesn't know, and you're like, "Wait till they find out."
And then it hits, and then his uncle comes in, and bro, that music is so scary. You could feel the tension.
Sinister.
And then he like hugs him, and you're like, "Oh man, what's going on right here?" And we have not seen the other Miles yet, and he gets beat up because his spider sense apparently doesn't work on the other Miles. That's how he got jumped. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And I was like, whoa, his spider sense does not work on Miles G. Morales. And then we got to see the new Miles. So I want to get your thoughts on the new Miles. Marguerite, what were your thoughts on the new Miles, the Prowler Miles?
Gosh, Prowler Miles, like he was just like, his locks, like he was just like, okay, my hair is did. I'm like, I mean, it's like Miles without the awkwardness, but it's like, clearly like he's gone on the dark side, which is also a very attractive trait for like any of us PTSD. So like many of us PTSD people are like, I know he went through a lot. So, but it's like he's facing himself, right? And it was I mean, and this is like where
The Prowler Miles got
Dog in
that
him.
dog in him.
That's what I'm
Dandy
talking about.
comments.
You know,
So
like
I love that. I
little
love
bit-
the joke that goes around. That's like, this Miles got an A in Spanish.
I don't even know if he took Spanish. He was just like, I'm out. I'm cutting class.
Oh,
I was like, yeah. I was like, you know, it was so yeah, like it was really good because I mean, I guess like I wasn't fully expecting that, you know, because like I'm just not as steeped in like any of the storylines and stuff. So I was just like, wow, this is gonna be pretty wild. And then, you know, so then I'm just like waiting for what's gonna happen, right? So then I guess
he was pretty menacing, and I really like that. And like, as someone who's gotten beat up a lot in Newark, I was like, yeah, he is pretty menacing. That's pretty much how it went down. They intimidate you first, so that they see if they can rob you without having to beat you up, and then when they see they can't, then they'll beat you up. And I was like, yeah, that brought back some memories.
Bro, you okay?
I'm never okay.
like, you know, let's like breathe. Like, what do you gotta do? That trauma flow. You know?
A lot of trauma talk
Deep
on this
breathing.
show today. Oh
It's
man.
Spider-Man. Of course, there's gonna be trauma talk.
Oh yeah.
Spider-Man.
That's true. That's true. All right. So the episode ends and it's to be continued. Now a lot of people are mad that it's a to be continued. They didn't expect it to be a to be continued. I knew of the part 1 and 2 the whole time. I guess a lot of people knew and forgot. And people are saying like, oh, it's not a full story. I still think it's a full story.
No
and
shit.
yeah, like even if you think about it from Gwen's perspective, like the episode starts with her. She has this horrible take about Miles. She comes around, and then she has the ending with all the bad guys. And she builds a team. So even if you look at her as the protagonist or her as like a team, it's a full arc for her. And even Miles, like his arc happened when he says, nah, I'm good. The story still continues, but his arc happened there, and his arc will happen. There'll be more arc to his arc, but I still think it's a complete story, and I don't agree with the fact that people are mad that it is to be continued. Like Lord of the Rings, Back to the Future, we've had tons of stuff like this, man. We know
Infinity
this.
War.
Yeah,
Infinity War. Like,
Come on, like. What is the whole point of having a cliffhanger?
Yeah.
Y'all. Like, come on.
and we're all talking about it, right? We're all talking about it. That's a good cliffhanger. So I really love it. It was a great thing. Gwen went and got a crew and includes the old crew, which means Nicolas Cage is coming back, which I'm really excited for. In my opinion, this may be the best trilogy of all time. I think it has the potential to be one of if not the best trilogy of all time.
Oh.
That's what I
Ooh.
think.
I don't know. Those some big words.
I don't know.
That's big.
That's how I feel, man.
What are your top trilogies? I guess I mean, I haven't been thinking about trilogies.
Lord of the Rings is up there.
Yeah, the Peter Jackson trilogy from Lord of the Rings. That's like number 1.
Back to the Future is up there. Guardians even up there too. But
Guardians is a pretty good trilogy.
Yeah. But no, man, something about this. It's just so relatable to me. I don't know. I just love it.
I don't know. I mean, even like a lot of people have hailed Spiderverse in general as the best Spider-Man movie, period. Including Tom Holland is like, Into the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie that's ever been made, like hands down. So, I mean, I think it'll definitely be iconic. It already is. So when it completes as a trilogy, it will be so absolutely iconic. Like, you might be right. You really might be right.
You might be, yeah. It might be Toy Story.
At least
puts at number 2 for me.
Toy Story has 4 movies. I'm not counting Toy Story anymore. It's once you get 4 movies, it's not a trilogy anymore.
That 4th movie doesn't exist.
No, Toy Story is a trilogy to me. It's a trilogy to me.
Like I mean, Toy Story just feels like 3. You know, like it's like it kind of continued, but they're not like, here is this, you know, like you're not getting the whole like arc of, I mean, they're good, you know, but it's like this one, I feel like there's that interconnected, you're seeing the growth, like it works. And this one was definitely like, I think it's a very culturally relevant film, like just the artistry, the comment, you know, like just all of those pieces coming together. that writer's room, I'm just like, I wish I was there. How they wrote those
Not
jokes.
just the writer, but the animation is so different.
Animation.
Anytime anyone they're like, this is gonna set like the bar for like this type of animation because it's so unique. And like where they have the registry where they put movies in like some kind of vault where it's like, oh, if the world ends, these are the movies that need to be saved. This
Yeah.
movie belongs in that vault. This movie belongs in that
Yes.
vault.
I
And
will
then
admit to
when-
that, yes.
And when the aliens come, they'll be like, they figured out how we traveled here through the, through the
Yeah. The aliens were like, oh, that's how the multiverse works.
yeah, they're like, that's how we got here. They knew, but it's like like there was so much like I'm still thinking about, right? Like that, because those are like concepts that
Yeah.
scientists like. I know like they had all those consultants and just like try to like weave all those things together. But I'm just like, it was just really great to see these
Yeah.
like I just stayed for the end credits to try to read as many names of all the people who were involved, and I was like, they were all
Yeah.
amazing. You're all
Mhm.
great.
It's
So
really,
good.
really great. And they say that the fact that Gwen started the movie with her commentary and it ends with her commentary, the whole movie is her pitching for us to go save Miles. So when she's convincing people to go save Miles, this whole movie is the story she's telling them, which I think is amazing.
Oh my gosh,
I just
yeah.
love it. And when she says, "You want in?" Hell yeah, we want in.
Mhm.
Part 2, we're coming for it. So this has been a great episode. Thank you guys so much. Nikki,
you.
let people know where they can find you because they definitely need to find you. You are amazing.
Both of y'all, like, yeah.
And
Nikki
you
is
go-
like,
Nikki,
I
you go-
watch her videos all the time. So where we can find
Nikki, you go first.
Thanks, guys. Well, you can find me on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at Nikki Marina, NICQEMARINA. Those are my main platforms. I pop into Twitter every once in a while, but I do not make it a habit for reasons. And for anyone that's in the Brooklyn area or the New York area, I'll be at Brooklyn Comic Con this weekend on Saturday at 4. On a panel with some other creators, including Black Gay Comic Geek and Fantastic Frankie. We're going to be talking about
And me, I'm on there too.
and you, my God. And I was like, damn, who's the fourth one?
Like literally.
Wow.
That's it. You're off the show.
You can slap me when you see me. I deserve that. But yeah, we're gonna do a panel on creating your own brand as a content creator, and so that should be a great session. And yeah, I'll have more Miguel O'Hara content coming up.
Can't wait to watch.
Of course.
That's awesome. And Marguerite, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm not a hater. I just tweet a lot. Until this platform collapses. But you could find
Oh my
me
God.
under Marguerite_Aziza. Aziza is my like Muslim nickname. So yeah, like, and I mean, my Instagram is basically a fan account for my daughter because she's really cool. And so it's under the same. I just changed it right before here, so I match. And I will be at San Diego Comic-Con on the 20th Thursday with Salaam Fandom talking about Muslim futurism. So come join the panel, find out how we envision the future, because I'm trying to be in, like, I'm gonna make myself canon in the Spiderverse.
You know, I'm canon in The Dark Knight Rises. I'm in the movie. I'm an extra in it. So technically I'm canon.
Are you really?
Oh, in that big
the
war
Nolan
scene
verse.
at the end?
In the Nolan verse, I am
I-
canon.
I'm canon in the Sony Spiderverse because of
yes,
I work
you
for the
are.
Daily Bugle.
Yes.
In the Morbius universe. So
Yes, I
yeah.
remember that. That's so dope. All right. Well, thank you
Amazing.
guys so much for being on. This is our longest episode. We've never done an episode this long. We might break it up into 2 parts so we can get more money
Oh my
from
gosh.
Spotify. So
Yeah. By all means. Yes.
yeah. Make that money. And listen, thank you so much for being on. We definitely have to have you guys on once again.
Mhm.
But until next time, guys, Salaam nerds.
Peace.